I didn't know what to expect when I pulled up to the driveway, but it sure wasn't this. My beach house, my sanctuary, wasn't mine anymore. The moving truck in front of it was just the first sign. The second was the people. My mother and sister, walking in and out of the front door like they owned the place. "Come help us with the boxes, Maya," my mother called out when she saw me approach. Her smile, the same one she always had when she was trying to make everything look easy, made my stomach churn. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I just stood there, my feet rooted to the driveway, the words stuck in my throat. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" I said, my voice betraying me, trembling with anger I could barely control. "What does it look like, sweetie?" "We're moving in." Her response was casual, as if we'd had this conversation 100 times before, as if this wasn't the first time I'd ever heard about it. My mind raced. I was sure I hadn't agreed to this. They were crossing a line I hadn't even known was there. But it didn't matter, did it? My mother and sister didn't need permission. Not from me. They decided, and that was the end of it. I could feel the blood drain from my face, my heart pounding louder with each step toward them. This wasn't just a visit. This wasn't just a weekend stay. No, they were moving in. Into my house. Without asking. "You can't just do this," I managed to say, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why not?" Brooke, my older sister, chimed in from behind a stack of boxes. "You've got the whole place to yourself. We're packed in like sardines over at Mom and Dad's. It's only fair." "Fair," I repeated, stepping closer to the porch, the weight of their words suffocating me. "You're not just taking over my house, Brooke. This is mine. It's my home. I worked for this. Alone. This isn't yours." But as the words left my mouth, I felt something shift in me, a cold sense of clarity. They didn't see it that way. To them, it wasn't about fairness or family. It was about control. It always had been. My mother waved dismissively, as if I was just throwing another tantrum. "Don't be dramatic, Ivy. It's just a little move-in. Family is family, and family helps each other." I could feel the anger building inside me, the frustration. How long had I been the one to help? How many times had I been asked for money, for time, for favors? When had I ever asked for anything in return? "Mom, this is my house. I'm the one who paid for it. Not you. Not Dad. Me. You can't just..." Before I could finish, Brooke dropped the box she was holding. It landed with a loud thud, the sound echoing in my mind. She wiped sweat from her forehead, looking at me with a mixture of indifference and irritation. "Come on, Ivy. Don't be selfish," she said, her tone flat. "We're family. What's the harm in letting us stay here for a while?" I stood there in the doorway, watching them, the chaos unfolding like a slow-motion train wreck. My mind raced with every possible response, every possibility, but nothing came close to the truth. This wasn't just about the house. It was about my entire life, my independence, my sanity. I turned and walked back to my car. I needed a moment to think, to breathe. But when I stepped inside the car, the rage hit me. The pounding in my chest was deafening, and I knew that if I didn't stop them now, they would take everything. My house. My life. They thought I would cave. They thought I always would. But not this time. I reached for my phone, hands trembling as I dialed a locksmith's number. My throat was dry, but I couldn't stop now. I need all the locks changed on my house. Now. My mind was already racing ahead. They had taken so much from me, and now they were trying to take this too. But this time I wouldn't back down. I stepped out of the car, still gripping my phone, and turned toward the front door. I knew what I had to do. This wasn't a family reunion. This was war. And I was ready to fight. The phone buzzed with a new message, and I glanced at it. "Don't bother. The house is already ours." My stomach dropped. I didn't realize it then, but that message, those words, were the beginning of everything. And there was no going back now. I was shaking by the time I left the locksmith's office, but I forced my hands to steady. There were too many questions swirling in my mind. How had they done it? How had they taken everything I worked for without a single word of warning? The locks had been changed, but the truth was still slipping through my fingers like sand. I sat in my car, the engine running but not moving, staring at the empty driveway where the moving truck had been earlier. It wasn't just a house, it was everything. My escape, my sanctuary, my proof that I could do something on my own. And now it was gone. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls, all from my mother, 2 from Brooke. My fingers hovered over the screen, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. What could they possibly say that would make this okay? The next message was from an unknown number, a lawyer's office. My pulse quickened. I clicked open the message, my heart pounding as I read the words. We have transferred the deed of your property to our clients. The sale is final. Please contact us if you have any questions. It felt like a slap in the face. A legal paper cut that left me numb, unable to react. The house had already been sold. And it wasn't just sold, it had been taken. I gripped the wheel, my mind racing. They can't do this. They can't just sell it out from under me. My breath quickened. But they did. There was no time to sit here and stew. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. I started the car, pulling away from the curb, heading straight for the one place I was certain would have them, my parents' house. The sun was low, casting a golden hue across the city as I pulled into the driveway. It looked too calm, too normal, as though nothing had changed, but everything had. I stepped out, slamming the door behind me, and walked up to the front door. The familiar scent of cinnamon rolls and coffee hit me as soon as I stepped inside. And there they were, sitting at the kitchen table like it was any other day. My mother, her hair freshly curled, sipping a cup of tea. Brooke, sitting across from her, flicking through her phone without a care in the world. They looked up when I walked in, and my mother's smile faltered, just for a second. Where's the truck? I asked, my voice tight. Oh, we had it taken back, my mother said casually, the words dripping with that insufferable calmness she always used when she was hiding something. We didn't want to overstay our welcome. But I told you, Maya, we're moving in. You've got the space, we need it. It makes sense. I stared at her. You sold my house, I said flatly, the words hanging in the air, thick with disbelief. You sold my house without telling me, without asking me. Brooke's head snapped up, but her eyes were blank. I told you, Ivy. It's a family property. Always has been. You just got the mortgage. We helped you with the down payment. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. The down payment was $2,000, Brooke. I put up $40,000. I'm the one who paid the mortgage every single month. I'm the one who paid for everything. And you think this is family property? You're being dramatic, my mother said dismissively. We're just making sure everyone is taken care of. There's no need to blow this out of proportion. I could feel my vision narrowing, my pulse pounding in my ears. I wanted to scream, to shout, but I couldn't let them see how badly they'd gotten to me. Instead, I just turned and walked back toward the door. I'm done here. Don't ever come to my house again. Don't be like this, Ivy, Brooke called after me. You're overreacting. I slammed the door behind me, the sound echoing down the hallway. My hands shook as I fumbled with the car keys. They thought I'd back down, like I always do. Not this time. The drive to my house was a blur. My mind replayed every word they'd said, trying to make sense of it, trying to figure out how they had gotten away with it. The car came to a screeching halt in front of the house. The porch light flickered as I climbed out of the car. I stared at the place. It was still mine. But for how long? Inside, I noticed something I hadn't before. A single envelope slipped under the door. The paper was thick, expensive. I bent down to grab it. There, in bold, cold print, notice of transfer of ownership. The blood drained from my face. My heart stopped. I ripped it open. The deed to the property. The sale. It had all been done in my name. But the signatures? They were mine. Well, at least they looked like mine. Only they weren't. They were forged. Every single one of them. A scream built in my throat. I slammed the door shut, holding the papers in my hand. No one would get away with this. They'd crossed a line. They'd taken something from me that I would never get back. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't dialed in years, the number of my old lawyer, the one I'd used when I first bought the house, the one I trusted. It rang once, then twice, and on the third ring he picked up. "I need you to help me fix this," I said, barely keeping it together. "They forged my signature. They sold my house without me knowing. I need to get it back." "I'll do what I can, Maya," he said. His voice was calm, but I could hear the tension in it. "But you need to understand this won't be easy. They've covered their tracks well, and you're going to need more than just legal help. You might want to start thinking about your next move. If they've done this once." His voice trailed off, but I didn't need him to finish. I knew what he meant. They would stop at nothing to take everything from me. I hung up the phone, staring at the empty house, the deed burning in my hands. The silence was deafening, and for the first time in my life, I realized just how far they were willing to go to make sure I lost. "Don't bother. The house is already ours." The text from an unknown number flashed on my screen. I didn't feel fear, not yet. But I did feel something worse, anger. The kind of anger that makes you question how far you're willing to go to take everything back. I stepped into the kitchen, the weight of everything settling onto my shoulders like a lead blanket. The house felt different now, empty, hollow. It should have felt like home, but instead it felt like a trap. The walls that had once held comfort were now watching me, waiting for me to break. My phone buzzed again, the unknown number flashing across the screen. I clicked it open. "Maya, you need to stop. You've already lost. The house is gone, and so is everything else." I tossed the phone on the counter, breathing in slow, controlled breaths. What was I supposed to do now? My heart thudded in my chest. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about everything they'd taken from me. The lies. The betrayal. I glanced at the deed one more time. My signature was there. But it wasn't my signature. The realization hit me like a slap in the face, cold and hard. They'd forged it. My own mother, my sister, both had been involved. They'd played me for a fool. And now, I had nothing left but empty words. I felt like I was suffocating, but there was no time to breathe, no time to think. The clock was ticking. I grabbed my jacket and rushed out of the door, the cold night air hitting me as I slammed the car, door shut. I needed to find answers, and I wasn't leaving until I had them. The first place that came to mind was the bank. They'd have all the records, the transfers, the paperwork, the proof. They wouldn't lie to me. At least not like my family had. The drive felt like a blur. Every stoplight, every turn, each one felt like it was dragging me deeper into something I couldn't escape. My thoughts kept spiraling back to the message. "You've already lost." That's what they wanted me to believe. That's what they thought would break me. But I wasn't going to let it. Not this time. I pulled into the bank's parking lot and rushed inside, barely pausing to take a breath. I approached the teller, a young woman with a nervous smile. "I need to speak with someone who can access my account records." Immediately, her smile faltered as she looked at me, then at the clock. "You're in luck, ma'am. I can have someone pull the files for you. Please have a seat." I didn't wait. The air felt thick, suffocating. I sat down, tapping my foot impatiently against the floor, my mind already racing ahead to what I was going to do next. What I could do next. Moments later, the doors to the back office opened. A man in a suit stepped out, his eyes scanning the room. I recognized him instantly, Mark Adams, the branch manager. "Maya," he said, his voice cool but not unfriendly. "What can I help you with today?" "I need to see the records for my account," I snapped. "The sale of my house, the transfer of funds. Everything." He raised an eyebrow but didn't protest. He led me to a small conference room, the glass walls too transparent, the whole space too exposed. I wasn't sure who was watching me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was. As we sat down, he pulled out a file folder and opened it. The light from the overhead lamp cast sharp shadows across his face, making it hard to read his expression. "What's this about, Maya?" he asked, trying to sound casual. But I saw the flicker of something behind his eyes. Anxiety, maybe. "I just want to know what's been happening with my house," I said, the words cutting through the air. "I know the money was transferred. I want to see where it went." He paused, flipping through the pages in front of him. Then, after a moment that felt like an eternity, he slid the file across the table. I snatched it up, scanning the documents quickly. There it was. The transfer. The payment. The buyer's name. My jaw clenched as I stared at it. The name was familiar, but it didn't make sense. The buyer was a company, Grayson Property Group. I'd never heard of it. Not until now. "You knew about this," I said, my voice low, barely controlled. "You knew about the sale. You let them take my house." Mark shifted in his seat, his eyes darting to the side. "It wasn't as simple as you think, Maya. These things—" "No, interrupta. I don't care about the excuses. I want to know why you let them steal my life out from under me." He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, the door behind him swung open. A figure in a dark suit stepped inside, and my heart skipped a beat. It was him, the private investigator, the same one who had been following me. My stomach churned as I realized the connection. "What's going on here?" I demanded, standing up. The investigator stepped forward, his gaze locking onto mine. "Maya, you need to come with me," he said. "Now." A chill ran down my spine. "No, I'm not going anywhere with you." Mark stood up as well, his expression turning more guarded. "It's not safe for you to be here. There are people who don't want you asking questions. Trust me, you're better off listening to us." I shook my head, my mind racing. "Who the hell are you people? Why are you involved in this?" Before anyone could answer, the door swung open again, this time more forcefully, and a woman in a business suit entered. Her eyes swept across the room before landing on me. "Is there a problem?" she asked calmly, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she positioned herself between me and the investigator. "I think the problem is pretty clear," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You've been lying to me. All of you." The woman met my eyes, her face as cold as ice. "You have no idea how deep this goes, Maya. You're in over your head now. There's no turning back." I stood there, the weight of her words sinking in. They were right. There was no turning back now. The quiet hum of my car engine was the only sound as I drove through the city. My hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white, my thoughts scattered. I couldn't shake the image of the documents from the bank, the forged signatures, the lies. This wasn't just about the house anymore. This was about everything. Every decision I'd made, every sacrifice, it was all worthless now. I had trusted them, my family, and they had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I wasn't even sure where to turn anymore. There was no one to rely on. Everyone I'd trusted was part of the plan. The realization settled in like a stone sinking into water. I couldn't fight this alone. The night was dark, the streets empty as I pulled into the parking lot of my old lawyer's office. I'd hoped I wouldn't have to drag anyone into this. But now I had no choice. I needed answers, and fast. The door to the office opened with a soft chime. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the smell of stale coffee lingered in the air. I approached the front desk, where a woman in her late 20s sat, her eyes tired but focused. "I need to speak to Nolan Davis," I said, my voice clipped. She looked up, giving me a sharp glance before typing something into her computer. "He's in a meeting. You'll have to wait." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I didn't have time for this, but I knew I had to get through it. I couldn't walk away without knowing my options. Minutes passed. And then the door to the back office swung open. Nolan walked out, his face tight with the same quiet professionalism he'd always had. He was tall, dark-haired, and wore a look of quiet calculation, like he always knew more than he let on. When he saw me, his face flickered with something. Sympathy, maybe, but it was gone too fast for me to catch. "Maya," he said, his voice low. "What's going on?" "I need your help," I said, stepping closer. "They've taken it. The house. My family sold it without telling me. They forged my signature, Nolan." He frowned, his eyes narrowing slightly. "I figured something like this was coming." I stared at him, my mind racing. "What do you mean, you figured it?" He hesitated for a second, then leaned against the desk, folding his arms. "I've been keeping an eye on your family for a while now. It's complicated. They're not who you think they are, Maya. You're in deeper than you realize." I froze. "What do you mean? What do you know about them?" Nolan looked around, as if checking to make sure no one could hear us. "I've been involved with some of their dealings over the years. They're not just in real estate. There's more, money laundering, illegal deals. And your mother and sister have been helping them. They've been selling properties under the table for years, using your name as a front. You've been their cover." I felt my breath catch. "You're telling me they've been using me?" "Exactly," Nolan said. "You've been their golden ticket, their secret weapon. You've been financing all of this without even knowing it." I shook my head, trying to process what he was saying. "How do you know all this?" "I've been watching them," Nolan said flatly. "I'm not the only one. There are others, Maya. People who've been waiting for you to find out. And now that you have, they're not going to stop. They'll do anything to keep you silent." I wanted to scream, but I held it in. I could feel the walls closing in around me. "What are you saying? What should I do?" "I'm telling you, it's not just about the house anymore. It's about your life. They've been using you for years, and they'll keep doing it unless you do something about it." The weight of his words hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I turned away from him, pacing the small office, my mind spiraling. "So what now? What do I do? You're telling me to go to the police, but I can't just tell them that my own mother and sister were involved in something this big." "You need to act fast," Nolan said, his voice quiet but urgent. "You've got a limited window to make this right. If you don't take control, they'll just keep pushing you out. This house, your money, everything you've worked for. It's all part of a bigger scheme. They'll find a way to erase you from the picture if you don't fight back." I turned back to him, my heart racing. "And how do you propose I fight back? I don't have anything left. They've taken it all." "You still have one thing," Nolan said. "The documents. The forged signatures. The money trail. I can help you get it all back. But you have to be willing to play their game. They'll think you're finished, but you'll still have leverage." I stared at him, the thoughts racing through my mind. Could I trust him? Was this the right move? I didn't have a choice. I had to do this. I had to take control. "Fine," I said, my voice steady now. "Help me. What's the first step?" Nolan nodded, pulling out a folder from the stack on his desk. He flipped it open, revealing a stack of papers. "You need to go to the real estate office where the sale was finalized. There's a paper trail, a thread you can pull on to unravel everything. We just need to find it." I took a deep breath, the weight of everything crashing down. It was like everything I had worked for, every dream I'd ever had been taken from me in the blink of an eye. But I wasn't done yet. I couldn't be. I grabbed the folder, feeling the cold weight of the paper in my hands. "I'll do whatever it takes." "Good," Nolan said. "But be careful. There's a target on your back now. You're not just up against your family anymore. You're up against people who won't hesitate to eliminate you if they think you're a threat." I looked at him, my eyes cold. "Then they'd better be ready, because I'm not going down without a fight." As I left the office, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I wasn't sure if it was Nolan or someone else, but I felt their eyes on me, their presence lurking just out of sight, and I knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. The office was silent as I sat across from Nolan, my hands shaking slightly as I gripped the edge of the table. His eyes never left me, but there was something cold in his gaze now, something calculating. He'd given me all the information I needed, or so I thought. But as he continued talking, I couldn't help but feel the walls closing in. "There's something else you should know," Nolan said, breaking the silence. "I wasn't the only one watching your family. There's another player involved in this. Someone deeper. Someone with more power than you realize." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What do you mean? Who?" Nolan leaned in closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "The Grayson Group isn't just a real estate company. They're a front. And the man behind them, his name is Thomas Grayson. He's got ties to politicians, business moguls, and people who can make you disappear. They've been laundering money for years, and your family has been complicit." I sat back in my chair, stunned. "You're telling me my family's been involved in something criminal for years? And I had no idea." Nolan nodded slowly. "I'm afraid so. They've been using you, Maya. Using your name to cover their tracks. They needed someone with a clean slate, and you were perfect. You're their fall guy, but not anymore. They're coming for you now." I ran a hand through my hair, trying to process everything he was saying. My whole life had been a lie. My family had been playing me, manipulating me like a pawn in their game. And now it was too late to walk away. "I have to go to the authorities," I said, standing up, my decision firm. "I have to report this. I have to expose them." Nolan's eyes darkened. "You think you can just waltz into the police station and walk out unscathed? Think again. They're not going to let you go that easily. If you go to them now, you'll be the one they bury." I froze, the weight of his words sinking in. My pulse quickened. "So what am I supposed to do?" Nolan's gaze softened, but only for a moment. "You need to play their game. You need to get closer to them, find out what they're really after. And when the time is right, you strike back." I wasn't sure what that meant, but I had no choice but to follow his lead. "Fine. But how do I get close to them? They'll never trust me." He smiled, but it wasn't reassuring. "They already trust you. They think they've got you in their pocket. All you need to do is keep playing the part." I nodded, feeling a surge of determination. It was the only option left. If I didn't fight back, I'd lose everything. And I wasn't ready to lose. I spent the next few days lying low, avoiding calls from my mother and sister, and working behind the scenes. Nolan had arranged for me to meet with a contact inside Grayson Group, someone who had been fed up with their operations for years but had no way out. The meeting was set for a secluded cafe in the city, a place where no one would think twice about a random conversation. The place smelled like stale coffee and the faintest hint of cinnamon. I took a seat at the corner booth, my nerves tight but controlled. I didn't have to wait long. A man in his late 40s approached, wearing a black suit and a fedora that cast a shadow over his face. He sat across from me, studying me for a moment before speaking. "You're Maya, right?" His voice was deep, gravelly, like he'd been smoking for years. I nodded. "I don't have much time. You said you had information." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Information isn't the problem. It's the consequences. Grayson's been using your name, but it's more than just real estate. It's money laundering, embezzlement, bribery. Everything that's going on with your family, it's all connected." I stared at him, my heart racing. "But why my family? Why me?" He hesitated before answering. "Your family has always been in the shadows. They've got connections, sure, but they needed you to clean up their mess. They thought you'd be their shield, but they underestimated you." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had been the shield, the fall guy. Everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. "You need to find out what they're really after," he continued, his voice low. "And you need to do it fast. They're preparing to make a big move. And if you don't get ahead of them, it's over. Make a move, I asked, confused. Grayson's planning something bigger. They've got people inside law enforcement. And they've got your mother and sister wrapped around their fingers. If you don't act now, they'll destroy you. I leaned back in the booth, the weight of his words crushing me. I had no choice. I had to dig deeper. I had to play their game, even if it meant sacrificing everything. The longer I waited, the more dangerous it became. And I wasn't going to let them win. I left the cafe with a new sense of purpose. But the closer I got to my car, the more paranoid I became. My eyes darted around the parking lot, scanning for anything out of place. The city felt too quiet, too still. It was as if everyone was waiting for something. And then I saw him, the investigator. He was standing across the street, watching me. I froze, my heart skipping a beat. He hadn't been there when I arrived. He was following me. I didn't wait to find out what he wanted. I turned and ran, my heels clicking against the pavement as I sprinted down the street. I could hear his footsteps behind me, getting closer with each passing second. I had to lose him. The streets blurred as I ran faster, adrenaline flooding my veins. I had to find a way out before it was too late, but I could feel it. The trap was closing, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep running. The sun was setting as I stood in front of the courthouse, watching the last of the daylight bleed into the horizon. It felt like the calm before the storm, but I knew better. This wasn't going to end easily. It couldn't. I hadn't expected it to come to this. But sometimes life pushes you to the edge until you have no choice but to fight back. They thought they had everything under control. My family, the Grayson group, the people who had used me as their pawn for so long. But the truth had a way of slipping through their cracks, and now I was the one holding the pieces. I turned the corner of the building and entered the side door, where I was greeted by Nolan, his face as unreadable as ever. He was all business now, no trace of the warmth I had once seen. "You ready for this?" he asked, his voice low. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, my heart hammering in my chest. "Let's get this over with." We walked together down the dimly lit hallway, the air heavy with anticipation. Each step I took felt like a weight, like I was walking towards something I couldn't control. Nolan opened the door to the back room, where a handful of people were waiting. Lawyers, investigators, all the people who had been pulling the strings behind the scenes. The room was sterile, cold. I could feel the eyes on me as I walked in, but I didn't flinch. I couldn't. "We've got everything we need," Nolan said, sitting at the head of the table. The forged signatures, the trail of money, the emails. The truth is out there now. We just need to make sure they don't cover it up. I nodded, trying to keep my composure. But we still don't know who's pulling the strings. We don't know who to trust. "Trust no one," Nolan said, his eyes narrowing. "The people behind this are more powerful than you think. They've got their hands in everything." I looked around the room, the tension palpable. It was hard to keep my focus. Every person there had their own agenda, their own stakes in the game. But I couldn't afford to care. Not anymore. "We need to go public," I said. "This can't stay hidden any longer. I want them to know what they've done." Nolan didn't reply right away, and for a moment, the silence between us felt suffocating. I could hear my own breath in my ears. "It's dangerous," he finally said, "but it's the only way." I could feel the weight of his words settle into me. There was no turning back. The house had been sold. My family had betrayed me. And now I was the one who had to face the consequences of everything they had done. The next few hours were a blur of meetings and phone calls. We set the plan into motion, contacting the media, preparing the legal paperwork. I could hear the quiet hum of activity in the background, the frantic pace of the world turning around me. But I couldn't focus on anything but the one thing that mattered, making them pay. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, the press release was ready to go. The story was out. My family's dirty secrets, the money laundering, the fraudulent sale of my property. It was all laid bare for the world to see. I sat back in the chair, my hands trembling. I had done it. I had finally taken control. But as I looked around the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. There was a knock at the door. Nolan opened it, and in walked a figure I hadn't expected. It was my mother. Her face was pale, her eyes red. She looked as if she hadn't slept in days. "Maya," she said, her voice hoarse. "We need to talk." I didn't say anything at first. I just watched her, my anger simmering beneath the surface. This was the woman who had used me, who had lied to me, who had stolen from me. "What's there to talk about?" I said, my voice sharp. "You sold my house. You forged my signature. You've been using me for years." "I did what I had to do," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "You don't understand. I was trying to protect us. I didn't want to lose everything." "By destroying me?" I spat. "By destroying everything I worked for? You think that's protecting anyone?" She shook her head, collapsing into the chair across from me. I didn't know what else to do. We were drowning. You were the only one who had anything. I thought if I could just make it through, we'd be okay. But now everything's falling apart. And I don't know how to fix it. I stared at her, my heart hardened. I had spent so many years trying to please her, trying to make her proud, but all she had done was use me. And now, here she was, broken and vulnerable, asking for forgiveness. I stood up, walking toward the window, looking out over the city. The lights twinkled in the distance, but it felt empty, like nothing mattered anymore. "You don't get to ask for forgiveness," I said, my voice cold. "Not after everything you've done." The room was silent. My mother didn't say anything else. She just sat there, broken, while I looked at the future I had to rebuild. The truth had come out. My life had been shattered, but it was mine to put back together now. I didn't feel relief. Not yet. There was still a long way to go. But one thing was certain. I was done being their pawn. I wasn't going to let anyone take from me again. Not my family. Not anyone. As I stood in the shadows, the weight of the past slowly started to lift. There would be no more running. No more hiding. I had taken back control. And I wasn't going to let go. Sometimes I muttered to myself, you have to destroy what you've built in order to rebuild it. And for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace.